ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Colts Coffee and Conversation. My name is Carl.
And I'm Holly.
We'd like to welcome you back to another exciting edition. We are going down the rabbit hole of Wild Wild Country, this series.
It's on Netflix.
It is on Netflix.
And there's 5 episodes.
There's 5 total episodes. We are on number 3 this time. But first we must do our disclaimer. We are just normal standard people. We do not hold degrees in anything as far as religious based. We're just going off personal opinion and observation. There, I'm done. Okay,
so let's get to it.
Before we get into it, what do you think about episode 3? Just kind of like, how did it make you feel?
Well, how did it make me feel? It was actually very eye-opening.
Okay.
You can see now, as we are going to be going along, why there was such a division between the ranchers, and then it blossomed out to the people of Oregon versus the Roshnishis.
Yes. Okay. Alrighty. So, you ready to get into it?
Yes.
Let's get into it. Okay. So, of course, it pans open when it begins. It pans open to them on their knees praying, the thankfulness of the land.
Yes.
And
it looks very peaceful.
It does look very peaceful. But if you kind of gauge over to the right of that screen, you notice that there's shooting targets. They're at the target range. So that kind of gives it a nice little creepy vibe. And that's after watching it multiple times, I realized that this last time I watched was like, oh my gosh, they're at the target range. I thought they were just like, in a nice little field, but no.
Right, and Shanti B was the one
pretty
much leading the prayer, right?
Yeah, she was, right? And then once that happens up, Sunshine comes out.
And she was the public relations
She's the public
person.
relations one. She always has that positive vibe. She's got a lot of energy. Where she starts off, and her phrase was, "No, we're not going to be victims. If you're going to come at us with big artillery, we will play your game." It was unsettling to a lot of us, but it was also brought a sense of security in some bizarre way.
Generally, they were peaceful people. They didn't have any weapons. That wasn't their goal.
No, it was not their goal. No, but this is after they felt
the bombing at the hotel in Portland.
That's correct. Then that's where they, this where it kind of took down this path.
Right, and so they show scenes of the arsenal that they were building up.
Yeah, there was a lot of weapons. I mean,
what kind of weapons?
You know what? I didn't even do my homework on that.
Well, let's just from visual. They had semi-automatic.
A lot of assault rifles.
Okay.
A lot of assault rifles, smoke grenades, some submachine guns, and of course pistols. And of course, I know there's a few hunting rifles as well.
Okay, so that's the kind of weaponry that they were gathering up.
Yeah, they were gathering up, and it was quite a few. And of course, they do show them doing their training, that they were in military stance, laying on the ground.
Yeah, that's interesting to note that one of the Roshnishis, or more than one, was probably in the military before.
It's a possibility, yeah.
And they were able to train them. Or, I don't think they didn't talk about it, so it's a wonder how they got that training, whether they were from the Roshnishis themselves or they actually paid people to come and train them.
But it's a possibility they probably paid. I mean,
yeah, they had a lot of money.
Neither one would not surprise me.
Okay.
Neither one would not surprise me. And then, of course, after they show the scenes of their arsenal, well, before we go any further, we talked about this earlier, was that my first inclination was, why are they showing this?
Oh, okay, so the Roshnishis are actually filming this.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if they did show it or if that was just for their own records and later on this was confiscated. But let's assume that they were showing this. Look, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, I just made no sense to me. But
well, it makes sense to me.
Why?
In the fact that Sheila is, the one spearheading it,
yeah,
and saying, look, we are ready for action. Don't mess with us.
Yeah, I get it. It's a scare tactic.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because for me, I'm like, if you don't want to, anyway, it's just showing your cards. Anyway. But then, they start going on the defense in regards to this. And then Sheila, she did say this in the quote, "I didn't have a gun here until they bombed our hotel. I didn't have a single weapon here. I don't believe in turning the other cheek," which tails back onto the ending of our...
Right, the turning of the other cheek.
Jesus turned the other cheek, and Bhagwan told me pick both their cheeks.
Correct.
So go ahead and continue on, and then it shows where Sheila does mention that when we showed them how good our training we were, that the locals were shocked. So
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because one thing about Sheila is that she never anticipates what those people in Oregon or even closer into Wasco County,
right,
right now, how they would react. I mean,
right.
she totally doesn't put the hat on the other side and say, okay, they were shocked. Okay, well, what are they just going to be shocked and sit there and cry? I mean, I don't understand why she never had she never saw the other side of the coin.
No, she was just laser focused on preservation and protection of the commune, which I
Okay.
understand because they did a lot of work in respect to that. Mishanti B. shows up, and she was saying that the people of Oregon knew that we were armed and that we could use our weapons well, and that we were prepared to use those weapons if push came to shove. So they were just getting ready for just any type of attack, and they were ready to go down fighting. Then it does transition over to the town being renamed from Antelope to Rajneesh. So this is where we're getting into that phase where you see the Rajneesh starting to take over the town, because at this time they couldn't set the ranch into a town at the
Right,
time.
they
So
wanted the ranch to
they
become
wanted
Rajneesh Puram,
That's correct.
and it wasn't able to because of the land use, and there was some kind
That is
of the
correct.
Thousand Friends of Oregon had prevented that.
That's
So
correct.
they went ahead and said, okay, we'll take Antelope
Right.
and we're going to
Do it legally.
do it legally.
Yeah, do it
Okay?
legally. So
Now, also, the one thing though, in our last one,
our last episode,
did we talk about that they
how they won the town.
Yes,
Yes, we
we
did.
already did. So in just a small review, is they had a vote. They were going to kill the municipality, and because the Rajneeshis had moved in and they were residents there, they outnumbered them, and it stayed a town.
Yes, they outnumber the locals.
Right.
That is correct.
Okay.
So yeah, so what they did was they renamed the town from Antelope to Rajneesh. According to the reports, they called it Antelope woke up to a red dawn.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I like that phrasing. Antelope woke up to a red dawn. Okay, well, nowadays most people don't realize that, but there was a movie called Red Dawn in the early 80s.
Yeah.
And
Look,
there wasn't really anything about the Rajneeshis or anything, but it was something that,
the stories are similar
yes.
to where it's a small mountain town. The Russians in the Cubans' land.
Yes.
In
the movie.
The original movie, not the remake that they did, which was Korea.
And of course, because this here is in the olden, this was in
During
the
that time,
80s.
yes, it
during
was
the
during
same
the time when Red Dawn
So that
first
was
came
sort
out.
of a play on words.
It was a very big play on words.
Okay, go
Not
ahead.
to mention the red clothes that they always wore also.
Of course.
Of course. So what they did was they changed the street names. They took over the city council of Antelope via election. Now there is this one gentleman by the name of Don Smith who always was constantly fighting these guys. He ends up talking to our man, good John Silvertooth, the man in the overalls. Very soft-spoken, very...
He's jovial, I think. He's pretty, he seems, to have a steady kind of personality.
Yeah, he brings the calm to the room, the calm to the chaos. I feel. That's just my feeling. He's got that kind face. Don Smith addressed him, said, hey, why don't you put your name on the ballot?
Yeah, can we put your name on the ballot because nobody else wants to do it, and we know that you won't win. Do you want to just basically be put on the ballot
Take
to
one for the team.
get your butt kicked?
Yeah, pretty much.
He
Take one
said,
for the
"Okay,
team.
fine."
Okay, fine. I don't care. But the Rajneesh didn't want to make it look like that they completely took over the town, so they took 3 Rajneesh on the council and 2 of the locals. Now the locals, there was Mr. Silvertooth and another gentleman, but after like 2 days, he pretty much cut and run.
Yeah,
So
he
pretty
didn't
much
want to
left
be.
John by himself.
Yes, he did.
Of course, John was like, "That's fine. I don't care." What did he say? It was, I found it was easier just to
To being nice.
Be nice. I get I
More
got further with
information.
them being nice than instead of being aggressive. So
And he also said it's kind of that you keep your enemies
he's
close.
Yeah, keep your enemies close. We were talking about that. Then he kind of goes on a rant, including what's the couple's last name again? No. What's the older couple's name again? I forgot.
We'll think of it in a minute.
Yeah, we will. I'm sorry. But they're talking about how the noises that they were making. Since they won the town, they pretty much
Right, so we had
controlled the
people,
town.
the people, they were living as residents in homes that they had bought. These are Rajneeshis, and they had, families probably over there. But anyway, the bottom line, it was so quiet in this town because there's no
There's no background noise,
yes.
no city
So
noise. Yeah.
you could hear what's going on in everyone's home, and I guess the comment was that you could hear them going at it all night long,
The
and it
loud
sounded like
noises.
animals. Okay.
Yeah, it sounded like animals. Now, just a friendly reminder that we did see the in the film that they released a little while back, and they had a session of what they actually do as far as their
they're part of their meditation, their
therapies,
therapy.
meditation,
Yes.
and yeah, some of it was pretty crazy. So you can only imagine, these are simple folk, and
Also, they
and all
had
that.
one thing in the town. They had a weed. I guess it was a park that had a lot of weeds in it.
Oh yeah, they decided to transform it into nude sunbathing.
Yeah, and so there they are, right out there.
Yeah, we're new, and of course, for locals, that's not.
Yeah, well, they're older people, and yeah, it's not the American way to do that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Right. Of course, there's Mr. Bowerman, and mind you, since they control the town, they also have their own police force as well. But they were doing a lot of attention was being put on this situation. The press is there all constantly all the time, and then they were doing a lot of interviews about the local ranchers, what's going on and things like that. And this is where Mr. Bowerman shows up, and saying that they were watching his ranch from the ridge the entire summer. Half of us feel that before all this is over, that some of us will be killed. So there was a
Yes.
genuine concern about in regard to this, because they had their police force / quote unquote peace force. The locals called the harassment force. Now we kind of already talked about oh no, we didn't talk about it. McGreers.
Yes.
McGreers. Those are the couple. They were saying they were patrolling at night, with the lights shining in their windows while the people were sleeping. Of course, guns were everywhere, all over the place. They were posted up in certain spots in the entryway and the exitway of the
yes,
town.
and also they were in marked and unmarked cars. Now,
Yes.
this is an actual police force that is legitimate because they are a municipality.
That's correct.
And so they staffed it with Rajneeshis.
Yes.
And then they were able to get trained at the Oregon Police Academy.
Yes.
And then they were able to get into the databases at the time of all of the people, if you're a crime or all the information. So it was becoming a problem that now they have another weapon to use against those townspeople.
That is correct. And that itself were just to spy on people as well.
Right.
Yeah, they used it not for what it was supposed to use. They used it for their own benefit. The way Mr. Silvertooth explained it was that the occupied forces has landed.
Mm-hmm.
Now the McGreers, they were talking about Jim, is an older gentleman who's a local. He was picking in front of their establishments with the sign "Better
red.
No, better dead than red."
Yes,
Better
okay.
dead than red. Now he was being arrested for menacing, is what they call it. But he was so arthritic, he was such a threat, but he was so arthritic that they couldn't put his hands behind his back. He had to be handcuffed in the front. So that's when after that happened, that's when the locals pretty much,
Especially the McGreers. That's
the McGreers,
kicked
yeah.
that in.
Yeah, the McGreers really, really were kind of the ones that they had no choice but to get involved. So the locals started arming up, and you have a lot of news stories in regarding that the locals were buying up guns left and right because they were scared.
And we're talking even greater Wasco County.
Yes, Greater
now.
Wasco County was running out of weapons because everybody was buying them. And I know they were talking to one of the gun owners, were saying it's older people. It's not
Because they
younger.
are afraid.
They're afraid. They're scared. There's a lot of older people coming and getting rifles and pistols and all that kind of stuff. So, so obviously, when you're under an oppression, it kind of does feel like a Red Dawn situation.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, Sheila was holding Antelope hostage.
Mm-hmm.
All the maneuvers that they were doing, it pretty much targeted to that. And then, Sheila was very, very open about a lot of the things that she did in a bragging way, where she said that she would stop if they recognized the land for where they want to build their city at the ranch of the city of Rajneeshpuram. Either way, she said, this is what she said, quote, "Either way, I win."
So she said, hey, we will give up Antelope. We were never interested in it in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
We had to do it for our own survival. And if you would just let us have the city that we want out at the ranch, which she called Rajneeshpuram, then we would not worry about Antelope.
Right.
But either way, we win.
Either way, we win. Yeah, and at this point, she is winning.
Okay.
So the press was so captivated, which obviously recognizably so. She hit the press circle.
Right, because the Rajneesh, the Bhagwan, told her it's time to go out, be provocative, get all of the free publicity that you can.
Yes.
So that's when she started going around to the talk shows, like Merv Griffin. She went on, I can see his face, but I just can't remember.
Johnny Carson?
No. That's more of a uplifting show. Anyway. These are all the afternoon talk shows. Anyway,
Maury Povich.
Maybe
She was on Maury.
But anyway, go ahead. So she kept provoking them. He would ask the question, is he the free sex guru? And she said something to the effect, well, if you're saying something, we don't charge for sex. She would be kind of flippant, and everything that you said to her, she'd turn it around.
Yeah, or she said that she enjoyed being the aggressor. Now that this time, since she was running the press circuit, this is when the curiosity and the seekers for Bhagwan started to really ramp up. So there was a machine behind all of this. And during this time, they were selling more books than ever before. The name recognition was completely there. And communes started to form.
Right, because of all the free publicity. They would have never heard of it.
Never heard of it. So what I did was I kind of did the math as far as the communes globally. Do you want to hear the numbers?
Sure.
Okay, so India itself, where they're their genesis of their belief system, they had 14 communes. Australia had 8. Italy had 15. Germany had 15. Amsterdam alone had 3. Switzerland had 8, and Portugal had 2.
Wow.
So
this was actually a good thing. This whole battle between Antelope and the ranch in Wasco County was a big boon for them in their global sales and plus organizing people. So can you tell us more about once these communes were organized, what did they do? How did they promote and get money? And
well, what they did was that the first and foremost, all the communes were self-sufficient. They had to be self-sufficient.
Okay, so they did different businesses.
So they did different things. They had plenty of different businesses, travel agencies. One was a disco.
They had a
coffee
bistro.
shops. They had bistros. Anything.
A construction company.
And a construction company. Yeah, that was another one too. Basically, with the total of the working sannyasins, people who were actually bringing money to the table, was 30,000 people. And then now, that's just 30,000, but just like with including followers and just curiosity, people weren't sannyasins, but they follow the teachings of Bhagwan.
Right, and they probably donated.
Yeah, they probably donated. So you're looking at, they said roughly about 500,000, 500,000.
That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
Especially when 30,000 of them are free labor.
That's correct. 30,000 is free labor. During this time, since they were getting such large amounts, everybody wanted to do the festival now.
So it's a world festival.
It's a world festival, their annual festival. They have it every year, and it's being held at the ranch, a.k.a. Rajneeshpuram. And during this time, that's when more money started coming in.
Right, because they would save up their money from all over the world to come on this trip.
Yeah, they planned for
and
a whole
I'm
year.
sure that a lot of that was arranged by these travel agents that were a part of the communes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when they would go to the festival, what kind of events or what kind of activities
what they
would
did
they do?
was they had a bunch of shops, tons of shops. So of course you could buy all the books and you can buy the clothing, and you had a bunch of options there. They had a beer tent. They even had casinos. So
yeah, that kind of threw me when they had the casino, because unless somehow it was Indian land, because I don't understand how they could have had the casino and not get taxed on that.
No, it won't, because it's considered a fundraiser.
Oh, okay. It was like one of those casino nights here.
Yes, exactly.
We have.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I won't want to dwell on it, but I just thought about that. Yeah.
It's similar to that. As long as it's a fundraiser and it goes to the funds, it's considered
because
tax
they,
deductible.
they never actually said it, but I have a feeling they were a 501c3 foundation organization.
I bet you they.
Because the main
you can't
guy
do all this work and not have
Right.
your T's crossed and your I's dotted. You had lawyers. You had.
the main guy that we talked
Swami.
about. No, not that one. The other one that was the gentleman that we his name was Prem or something.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He was the one that used to be a commercial banker and all that. So he was the organizer of all that kind of stuff. Plus, I'm sure Swami helped with the paperwork and all that.
Yeah, so they had their annual festival.
Now, Sheila mentioned that it was great because it was a festival of colors, and it was something that you just had to be there in order to experience, and you would never have that experience. And they showed how all the people would come, and then, of course, the Bhagwan would drive his Rolls Royce, and they would line up just to wave at him. And some of these people never met him in person, so this was their big highlight.
One moment, yeah.
You know, and also tell us about what Sunshine had mentioned during that time.
Well, Sunshine mentioned the crowd. She was talking about how, you know, he would get the crowd hyped, and this was happening in that tent. That big steel tent we were talking about in episode 2 with the 15,000 people. That thing was packed. Oh my gosh, that was packed. I mean, just looking at it,
probably
just kind of experiencing the noise.
Probably not a safe for the fire
Oh,
department.
of course not. Oh, absolutely. But it's an open space, so you can't really. It's just a big coverings. It's still in an open space, so you know that's a very big flexible. You're not in a confined area, so it doesn't really matter as far as.
So Sunshine was talking about the crowd.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, when I was watching this real quick, as I'm describing this, I had my noise canceling earphones on, so when they played the crowd noise, and man, it was intense. He would come out and shake his hands and get the crowd really going, and oh man, when they ramped those amps up, and I was like, I got goosebumps. I'm getting goosebumps now talking about it because like, oh my gosh, this is insane. And he would constantly just shake his hands because remember, he's sick. We keep forgetting that he's actually sick. He has a bad back problem, mm-hmm. So he's walking very stiff. And he's walking very slow, but his hands are going in a quick raising gesture, like louder, louder. Mm-hmm. And of course, then he calls her up, and then she starts dancing with him, and it shows the scene
she was very young at the time.
She was very young at the time, and she's dancing with him, and he's just a man. He wanted to play with me, so we played. Da 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 da. You know, you could see on her face that it was her moment of her life. She's explaining it, and of course, it's great when you're explaining it and you see it at the same time while she's narrating over the story. That wow, I mean, there's pure joy in her. She's having a great time, but just the people itself, he would just basically kind of come through the crowd, and the crowd would just be going nuts.
Yes, okay. It was a very good time, but there was something that in Antelope, can you talk about the people in Antelope, that weekend that they had the World Festival?
Yeah, they did the World Festival, and of course, they had, obviously, the news was there. It's talking about, you know, it's a big thing over there, but in small little sleepy town, it's quiet and no one's celebrating, and of course they're just mad. They're angry.
But also there was rain. They were talking it was raining there on the festival.
Raining there on the festival, and they said, "Oh, did you
order this?
Order this?" Like, you're darn right out of, dude. You know, kind of thing. So, but after the festival was over, this is where things start to get interesting, where they start to get exposed, and that's, of course, good old Mr. John Silvertooth. This guy is gold.
We kind of call this ourselves the leak.
We call it the leak.
The leak, which is very. It was very serendipitous.
Yes,
that
very.
This happened
because it goes from loud crowds to John Silvertooth. You know, it's just like Mr. Do 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 do.
Very unassuming.
Very assuming. Very just nonchalant. He goes. There was a dump.
Okay, well, wait a second. So he talks about how there's a story I never told in public before. I don't know if I should be telling you this or not.
Okay, go ahead.
Right?
Go ahead.
And he said there was the dump. There was a small little dump. Obviously, they don't do that anymore because of environmental stuff. But he goes up there to dump his trash, and he sees a poster that is in the dump. And he says, "Oh, that would be neat." I mean, the guy's kind of just going along like, "Hey, let's see what it might be valuable one day. Who knows?" So he grabbed the poster, and as he's grabbing the poster, he sees all this paperwork that says shred after meeting, shred after meeting. Well, someone fell down on the job, didn't shred it. They just put it in the dump. Well, he's telling his buddy, "Hey, keep an eye out so nobody can see me." And he's taking all these secret papers.
Yeah, and the secret papers, it's about arranged marriages.
Yes.
That can go in many different directions. Meeting minutes of what's going on internally with the commune. Also, censoring the mail, opening the mail prior to leaving.
Yes.
the ranch.
Well, yeah, because if you think about it, they had charge of the post office
That's correct.
in Antelope because
they
that
did.
is an official town,
Municipality,
right?
That's correct.
That's a federal crime
That
right
is a
there,
federal crime
tampering
right
with the
there.
mail
Well, not
alone.
just imagining arranged marriages.
And
as
the
well.
arranged marriages is now we're talking about federal
Immigration.
law immigration. Yeah.
That's correct. So this is where the friend that he wanted to share all this information with, Mr. Silvertooth, is Dave Frohmeyer, who is the Oregon Attorney General.
Now, how did he know him?
They knew each other from way back when. They went to college together at the University
Actually,
of
they
Oregon.
grew up together.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, not Silvertooth.
No, not Silvertooth. They
That's
met
right.
in college. Now, we kind of jumped ahead a
I
little
did,
bit.
sorry.
That's okay, that's fine. We need to understand, first and foremost, in regarding John Silvertooth, is that, well, before we go into that, while they were celebrating the festival, the Rajneesh were doing their festival, the mayor, we got to talk about the mayor for just a quick second.
Now, what is his official name there?
Krishna Deva.
Krishna Deva.
Krishna Deva. We're just going to call him the mayor because it's just easier. Now, the mayor did this big speech, and along with Sheila as well. Pretty much sounded almost the same, but the three words that were coming out of both their mouths was the townspeople and the people of Oregon are jealous, ignorant, and stupid. So when you're saying this, and then you talk about John Silvertooth, and there's John Silvertooth, he's actually a college graduate. You know, he's not stupid, he's not ignorant. Ha ha ha. You know, and like he said,
But because they're very, very arrogant.
Extremely
So the
arrogant at this
Rajneesh leadership, let's just put it as
leadership.
far as
Not-
Sheila's
the
concerned.
followers, maybe no, I don't think
They
so.
weren't involved
They
in
weren't
all
involved
of
in
this
it. We're
stuff.
just talking about the
Yeah.
inner circle, the higher upper echelon of the group. John Silvertooth, his close friend from college, is the the Attorney General, David Frohmeyer. Now this is where the Mr. Bowerman comes into play.
Right, so you're going to
This
give
is
us
the
a little
Bower-
history
yes,
of
a little bit of history. The Bowermans and the Frohmeyers, they all grew up together. They always came together. The families always came together over the summer. So they're both very influential families of the state of Oregon. Mr. Frohmeyer was which kind of makes me shake my head even more about the arrogance of the Rajneesh as far as their leadership goes, is arrogant and stupid. He was a Rhodes Scholar, graduated top of his class, all that kind of stuff. And that's just from top of my head. It's not
Okay,
you know.
all right.
So he was an extremely bright gentleman. From what the Bowermans were saying, that Dave basically was intended to be the Attorney General. This was his calling in the world.
Exactly.
So, and he says that what happened was that Mr. Silvertooth gave all that information that he found in the dump that was supposed to be shredded over to Mr. Frohmeyer, to Dave. We're just going to call him Dave. He filed a suit for a violation of Constitution of separation of church and state.
Right.
So this is where it comes into play. So what they did was, as far as the investigation, they investigated what their concern was. The religion is controlling the government, where it's not. Hence
Right.
the separation.
So yes.
There's a lot of. It's not even gray area. They're running it in a gray area type of way. So what they were talking about, the law enforcement, these are religious people.
Their loyalty was not to the badge. Their loyalty was to the
religion.
Bhagwan,
The
right?
Bhagwan. Yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
so
Because
that's
having
one thing.
access to the database was very, very uncomfortable for the Attorney General. Plus, the access to all the weapons. That's what
Because they got
because they're the
weapons
enforcement.
that normal citizens could not have,
That's
but because
correct.
they were a
They had-
police
yes.
force, they were able to get that.
Smoke grenades, all that other military type of weaponry. They had full access to it.
Right.
The public school was another one that they investigated.
Now, they were coming into school with religious garb. They had religious symbols all over
Symbolism
the
all over
schools.
the school, and the investigator said it didn't look, sound, feel like a public school. So that's where it comes into play again. More of the religion was controlling the government. Now, as far as the government goes, the Bhagwan selected the mayor. Then the city council were selected by either Sheila or the Bhagwan. They staged the elections, but it was just for show.
Yeah, it was
just for appearances
yeah,
only.
exactly. And so this is the start of the investigation. I can't. Well, they were bringing charges against them.
They were bringing charge against them, yeah. And of course, the mayor, Mr. Deva, Rajneesh Puram, calling the Attorney General full of crap, while he's saying this, he's covered in the orange and the red garb and the necklace with the, it just is like, dude.
But he's also calling him, names that,
Stupid.
Yeah, all of that
just,
stuff that it's kind of interesting how he would say, well, there's no words I can say in front of you people that could describe how I feel about the Attorney General.
Yeah, and I mean, I understand that, but when you're saying this and you're saying that everything he's bringing up is garbage, and yet you are covered in red and orange, and you got the necklace of the. By the way, I looked up that necklace that you see him wearing. It's got like the
Yes.
looks like beast, and the medallion, and the medallion is the Bhagwan's face, by the way. So it's like, come on, man, really.
Okay, so let's go to
what basically they talked about what Swami said, the lawyer. He said that they compare themselves to the Catholics in Boston. They controlled that and this and that.
Okay, I want you to list all of the things that the
And
Swami
then you
said.
break it down.
Yeah.
Okay, and then of course the Mormons. Not just Salt Lake City, but Utah. They have their own state. And he was saying that major religions were okay, but the minor ones just doesn't matter. That's
Okay.
what he said in regards to
So what I wanted to talk about, just briefly about that, is they're comparing themselves to these different times. Major religions versus the minor religions. Of course, the Rajneeshis were minor at that point.
Yeah.
But if you think about when the immigrants came over from Ireland, and of course the Catholics were not a major religion in the United States at that time.
No.
So they were considered minor, and we do know that they were corrupt, and now that's been hopefully fixed. But I mean, the bottom line is, yes, these are corrupt. Then you have the Mormons. That was a minor religion. They moved out west to get their own thing going. They had made a lot of concessions to give up polygamy and stuff in order to become a state.
Yeah.
So they ended up making that transition.
Right.
His thing saying that, apples to oranges, it was apples to oranges. It wasn't the same. He wants to make it like it was the same.
Right.
Now, the other thing, go ahead. Is there something more before we get to something?
Yeah, their litigation team calling that all the politicians are stupid and full of backwater bigotry, which, once again, they're not giving the people of the state of Oregon their due. I mean, I get where they're coming from as far as protecting, to a certain extent. I kind of lean on there. I can see both points of view on this, but you're literally openly dismissing, these politicians who, if you take a look at their actual background, especially the Attorney General, he's not stupid by any stretch of the imagination.
So,
I find it just fascinating where the arrogance is so much that you just, who cares if you're a Rhodes Scholar? I'm sorry, that's beyond impressive. You have that on your resume, you can write your ticket.
Well, I think it's because my theory in this, just thinking about it, is because the Rajneeshis have basically discarded all kinds of moral conduct, all kinds of the societal beliefs of the United States, the Western world. The Bhagwan allowed them to, shed all that in this one environment, this bubble that they have at the ranch or the commune. They just felt that, they were above every rule, above all that, and that all they had to do, they wanted their way no matter what.
Right. Another thing, too, is that the mayor, he started comparing their problem with, he was saying,
the Nazis.
The Jewish problem, the Jew problem versus the Rajneesh is now the problem. Started comparing them towards the Jews, and it's like, once again, that really, oh man, it really pissed me off. I'm sorry, to no end, because it's like, first of all, how dare you compare yourself to that? Just a whole different, your persecution, what you call persecution, versus what really happened to the Jews. It's literal, like you said, apples to orange, and that just pissed me off. I really wanted to beat his ass. But during this time is when Sheila really decided to be driven to save the community. Okay, so now her drivenness to save the community comes up to they start talking about Jesus Grove.
Can you tell us what Jesus Grove was?
Jesus Grove is an area where basically it's Sheila's house. whereas the inner circle got to stay there. They lived there. People started to include, and this is just Sheila's inner circle. A lot of the people in the inner circle, yes, they believed in the teachings of Bhagwan, but since Bhagwan was always...
Well, he stepped back into his home, and she stepped forward. He went into his house,
the whole thing. Yeah, my way, he was hiding in his house when all this is going on. So Sheila's the spearhead. People started to also include their belief in Sheila along with Bhagwan. So it kind of became like she became
especially
a prophet of the
Shanti B.
Especially Shanti B. Especially Shanti B. Now her lieutenants, all of her lieutenants, as they called it, lived there. They're constantly meeting about the preservation of the community. And that's where they started developing the scheme to bring in the homeless.
Okay, so this whole thing is a very interesting shift in what's going to happen next in the story.
Yes, it's a massive shift. So this is what I call the action of the homeless migration. This is what I call it. So basically what Sheila decided to do was, take on, what the outside perspective was when she was in the press, was saying that these are the people that the...
Well, she had a big
plan.
Big plan. She was kind of you just have to be patient for it. She was really using the press to kind of ramp up this big announcement.
Yeah, so
the big announcement was
the homeless migration. So I wrote down some of the cities that they were in: San Diego, Chicago, New York, Albuquerque, San Francisco, just to name a few. Mm-hmm. So they went to all the major cities and pretty much picked up a lot of...
Their pitch to the homeless people is, here's a bus ticket, get on the bus, you can go to a beautiful city that will feed and clothe you and give you self-respect. And it's a brand new thing, And so those people are like saying, oh, okay, because they have nothing else to do.
They have nothing to lose.
Right. So they get on these buses, and they're school buses to Greyhound type buses, coaches, whatever they could do.
Whatever they could do, yeah. So what it is that when they take a look at, what's the word I'm looking for, spanned out to the overlooking of the encampment, it was basically a bunch of houses.
Right, so they built a lot of it kind of like looks like you would have something for military or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So they built an encampment in the ranch. Now they basically what she was saying was that they were giving them back their self-respect. What happened was in 39 days they brought 3,500 people. That's a lot of people.
Right, and there's more to come, by the way.
Yes, there is, yeah. No, from what they say is that at the end of that month, during the news story, that the homeless might outnumber the actual Rajneesh.
Yeah, there was like 7,000, maybe?
Well, the question is, what's the real plan behind this? That's where we're getting to it. So what happened was we're talking about the locals' point of view now. Now, the locals, regarding the homeless, they were having their issues with the homeless as well, because not only they're coming in buses, they're walking, and they're getting any way they can. So they're finding some of these homeless people sleeping in the open lots, sleeping under their cars, sleeping under their houses. So it's very scary, especially when you have
elderly people,
retirees who, at this point, you got to take a look at it. They're scared enough as it is. Now you're bringing all these other additional strangers into it that are homeless, and they have nothing to lose. So you can kind of have an idea of what they're going through. But basically how it worked is, from what it turned out to be, was you get 3 hots and a cot for your vote. That's basically what it was.
Right, so the scheme was, we're going to bring in all these homeless people. We're going to get them, cleaned up.
Yes.
Straightened up, getting them, clothing.
Oh, the idea is fantastic.
Oh, of course. And this looked like they were a charitable organization that was going to be doing this.
Yeah, at this point, you have to look at it and say, okay, you know what? Good for you. Good for you. I'm not mad at this at all. But then later on, you find out it basically was, they were, cleaning. They
did what they said.
They did free labor. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to lie. They use them for labor as well. But hey, you're getting 3 hots and a cot. Why not? You're getting taken care of. You're getting cleaned up. At least you could do is help out. But on the outside perspective versus the inside perspective, it all plays a part when it comes to the voting booth.
Can you tell me about the Oregon law for voting? Can you tell me what that was at the time?
Yes. Yeah, we could do that. The Oregon voting to register, keywords to register to vote. 1, U.S. citizen. 2, be 18 either on the day of voting or prior to. And then you must be a resident of the state of Oregon for 20 days. So you need to be there less than a month, and you can have, and if you qualify the other 2, then you can register to vote in the state of Oregon. But this is where we come into the part of the takeover of Wasco County.
Okay. Okay, continue on.
Okay,
I'm kind
no,
of
that's fine. So
derailed here.
that's okay. The takeover of Wasco County. So basically, Sheila feels that is necessary for the preservation. At this point, you got to understand they're on their heels right now.
That's because Frohmeyer, the Attorney
The
General,
Attorney
was
General
after
is
them.
after them, and you know what? He's winning. He is winning because you know what? He's right. What he investigated is what he sees is actually what's
So
going
now
on.
Wasco County had something like supervisors, some kind of council for the whole entire, like here in our place where we live in our county, it's supervisors.
Yes, that's
okay,
correct.
it's some that runs the whole county.
That's correct.
All right, so these are the
So basically, what it is that she used the Rajneesh and the street people because when you're talking about this, that's how the press devised the people who are originally the Rajneesh versus the street people. They had to make a difference.
well, yes, they are
Because
different.
they're completely different. They're not part of the religious following as of yet.
Correct.
Now they use them to register to vote. Now at this time, you're talking 6,000 people they brought in. So so what she brought all these people in for these. This is now the master plan starting to take effect. You kind of get an idea of what's going on. Is that you got certain towns, a la Antelope, which had how many people in it?
Few, like they only had 40, 50.
Okay, so you're talking a lot of small towns that have 40 to 50 people. So if you take the whole county together, you're looking at maybe 7, 8, 9, maybe 1,000 people total, maybe a little bit more because remember these are ranch lands. So you could have two people on a plot of how many X amount of acres, but you're talking about the county as a whole. They're basically about to take over the county just by bringing on these homeless people to register to vote and to take over the county.
Now I wanted to talk about that a little bit because they brought these homeless in. They're giving them stuff. They're grateful. And so they start participating in the community. They start the working. They're very appreciative. They're talking about the homeless people.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And they start doing their therapies and their meditations and they're liking it. And, hey, what's not to like? Sheila has a way of doing these like a little pep rallies with the
Oh, yes.
homeless people.
Absolutely. Absolutely,
And
she
so
riles them up.
she riles them up, and she said, "You fought for them if they were veterans, or they don't love you like we do, and they threw you out. You're a wino, you're a derelict, but we don't see you that way." So she pumps them up and gets them going, like, yeah.
Gives herself her
Exactly.
self-respect back.
And so she's asking for them, for their vote, and of course, all of a sudden, this becomes very important to these people who never voted before, or who knows, didn't care
Or
about
didn't
it.
care at the time. Now, and the one thing that Sheila did, I don't think she did her real homework on this, which throws me off for a loop, is that some of the people they were bringing were felons.
Yeah, you
So
can't vote.
You can't vote, so therefore you're basically in her mind dead weight.
Also, you could possibly be illegal. We don't know
We
how
don't
many
know. Yeah,
illegals they
you
had.
you can go in many different directions. Exactly. And
Of course, then we also talked about it casting a wide net. There might be some fallout, but if you have more than enough,
out of 6,000 people, you can still outvote the county.
yes.
Yes. So basically, from what it looked like after you find out the grand scheme is first you get the town first, second you get the county, and then third you get the state. So that's what it was looking like because that's what the fear was with the locals. Like if they take over Wasco County, it's only going to spread because they were
Of
interviewing a
course.
lady saying by 2000 this could be an entire Rajneesh state, and it is definitely a possibility
Yes.
because the more people come in, the more people move over. It's just a chain reaction effect. So that's where Mr. Bowerman comes in again, saying that they have 6,000 people to vote, that they had a shot at keeping the county easily. They said they were dead in the water.
Yes.
Pretty much what it was. So now we're going to get to the battle for the county. What happened was that they started busing people in to register to vote.
Now they had to go to a certain.
Salem,
Okay.
Oregon. They had to go to
Oh,
Salem,
did they?
Oregon. Yeah, it was Salem, Oregon, where all this happened.
Okay.
Because you had to register to vote, not
Yes,
to vote, but to register to vote. Because, like we said before, U.S. citizen 1, 2, 18 on election day or prior, and then of course the 20 days. So you're basically registering to be a resident of Oregon.
Yes, and the funniest, it's kind of ironic because in those days they had these things that you just mentioned were part of a progressive, easy vote
Yes,
state.
exactly.
And now
It comes to
Sheila
bite them in
is
the butt.
using it against
Absolutely.
them,
Yes, and they had a.
and they're like not liking.
No,
it.
they're not liking it at all. They had one of the Republican representatives on one of the TV shows that they were showing on the show, and then of course Sheila's there as well, saying, and he was saying, yeah, it kind of bit us in the butt. Not saying that verbatim, but that's what he's basically
And
saying.
she's, of course, saying, yep.
Yep, you dang Skippy. Yeah, and then I think part of the problem is that, this is where everything gets hostile. But anyway, so of course the state of Oregon has to do something. So what happened was that they decided to, once they brought all the people, and of course
well, they
the
were
new cameras
bussing
are there.
them down.
They were bussing them down. Well,
they're all happy.
Well, this was the first bus.
Yeah.
The first bus were coming to register, because all they were going to do all day was just basically go back and forth to Salem, bringing all the quote unquote street people to register to vote. They were given a blanket rejection to all of new registered voters.
Okay, so there was
the county refused everybody.
It was a blanket rejection,
Yes.
and it was coming close upon election day, and so we talked about this. They didn't have time to vet everyone to whether they're a felon, whether they're legal or not. I mean, I'm sure a lot of those people didn't have IDs, So
Right.
in their defense, they didn't mention it in the documentary, but in the Oregon's defense, they would have to block it because there could be fraud. You have people that shouldn't be voting, and it's a fraudulent vote.
Absolutely.
So that's why they had to shut it all down. So
yeah,
what
it was
happened?
a blanket vote.
Yeah.
So of course they made a scene about it at the courthouse in Salem, which I understand as well. So this is where you kind of sit there and go, okay, state of Oregon, you kind of screwed up on this, but you can go either way on this. Honestly, you can go either way.
I think we need to talk about Swami, what he had said something about that.
Well, he said it was against the constitutional right, and
They had never
done it before in the history of
maybe
the United
one other
States,
time.
maybe one other time. But the thing is that to this moment, I don't know what Swami's really doing. He's probably caught up in litigation left and right. He's not paying attention to what's really going on.
Well, he didn't know about the deviousness. He was just looking at it as far as the Constitution and legalities.
Legality standpoint, yes.
And he said he was really riled up about the
he
whole
was
thing.
really furious after he found out they got turned away over at Salem. Absolutely.
Okay.
So now
we have to shift into something
Now we have to
different.
shift over. So the plan that Sheila had backfired. It backfired. You got 6,000 people on the ranch, and then you have what Miss Shanti B said, a hornet's nest in the middle of the community.
Yes, and it was the all these people now they were using them for a specific purpose. They probably spent a lot of money with the housing, the food, the whole bit, getting them there, the transportation. This hornet's nest is like, okay, now we can't use these people anymore. What do we do with them? Well, there was a story that Shanti B told, and also Sheila did tell part of this story too. It was her story, that there was a homeless man. He's very large, and he was pretty much out of his mind. He was even foaming at the mouth, supposedly. So I'm not sure what that all means when you do that.
Right.
But anyway, he was in a psychotic trance or something. So Sheila went out to talk to him. Now see, this is another thing that kind of kills me about Sheila. She just thinks she can do whatever. No one's ever going to touch her. She's very unaware, of things, that she just thinks she's all powerful. She's very arrogant. Well, the guy just grabbed her by the throat. Pulled her up, shook her. She thought she was going to die that day.
Right.
Okay. So then the security force was there. We're not sure how all that happened, if they were able to stop him in a second, but the doctor came and shot him, injected him with a sedative, okay? Yeah. And I'm sure they probably put a sedative to Sheila too, because she was probably very shook up.
Right.
But this really magnified the fact that, oh my goodness, we have these people, and a lot of homeless people, even to this day, are mentally ill.
And they're outnumbered.
Yes, and they're outnumbered, and and they don't want to be doing automatic rifles to mowing them down.
No, because what amazes me too is that they never, like you said earlier, they never looked on the flip side of the coin.
No.
They never.
So now, if you think about it, just thought about that, they do have weapons, they could, but they don't want to have that kind of a situation. So now
because you're proving them right, as far as the Jonestown thing we talked about.
So what they have to do is so what are we going to do? And the more creative they came up with things, they were saying, the more they got in trouble.
Yeah.
But the creativity was they decided to put a drug. It's a antipsychotic drug named Haldol.
That's correct.
That was put in the beer because they got two beers a day.
Beers a day for dinner.
This was be the homeless people.
The homeless people only.
Yeah, and they made sure that no Rajneeshi would partake of that. By the way,
That's correct.
that's what they did. Now, of course, this is against the law.
Yeah, because they did not have the okay to do that.
Well, you can't just put stuff in food, as we'll find out later. You can't spike things, quote unquote. It's
No.
because you're doing that against someone's will. I mean, I could see why they did it. I do see that.
There's no justification for it.
But legally they can't, and they're trying to probably figure out. We may find out in the next episode how do they rid the problem. I know I've seen it before, but I don't really have it at the top of my head because I'm just doing it one episode at a time.
Right.
But now they're like going, okay, now we got to at least calm them down so we know what's our next step to get.
Right. They're scrambling at this point.
Yes. Okay. So I think we can go on.
Well, no. What happened is that the devotion. They're talking about why they did it is because their devotion was so strong to Sheila that they allowed themselves to be led in the wrong direction.
Now I think that's Swami said that, right?
Swami said that.
No.
That was Ashanti B saying that.
Oh,
now
okay.
Swami. Now the ending of this episode really creeped me out. There's Swami at the end, and this was his quote: "There's a darkness to all of us. All of us have a dark side. That's just the nature of being human. But does it make you a bad person?" See, and then he had that evil laugh. That laugh just sends chills all over my body because to me it's an evil laugh. Because the way you heard it and the way I heard it was two different
ways.
Yeah, I took it as I'm going, did he just do an exclamation mark and a question mark at the end of this? Because to me, it opened up a possibility of agreeing and disagreeing. The cliffhanger was perfect as far as this goes because I took it as that, oh, okay, here we go, and I thought we were already gone for a ride on this one. There's another ride to go on after this one. So, and then of course it fades to black, and then
for me, when he said that, he said, "Does it make you a bad person?" Or it doesn't make you a bad person.
Yeah, you took it as just as a statement.
Yeah, I took it as a statement, and then he kind of laughed because we all do have a dark side. We all think this.
Agreed.
We think things.
Agreed.
Of doing this bad things, but we don't act out on it. But with Sheila and her lieutenants, they were just, she was actually able to act out on some of these crazy. We have crazy ideas. We talk about, if we had,
XYZ,
we should do this. We're not going to.
Right.
It's just kind of, letting off steam.
Right.
But for Sheila, this letting off steam really
reality.
meant reality.
That was her reality. And I think that and this is where I look at it as far as just being a human and as far as, what would you do if you were in that situation as a Sheila? Because like I said, we got to look at both sides of the coin here. You already took over a town and you did it dirty, and it makes you look bad, so you go on the aggressive. You're listening to what your great leader is telling you to do, but he's not out in the open. So she's kind of on an island on her own. This is just my perspective.
No, it's good. It's a good one.
She's on her own island. Yeah, she's arrogant. Yeah, she's brash. She feels invincible because she believes in the Bhagwan, and whatever he says is law. But she's not from the United States, so she thinks the law is always going to be on her side, but the law has failed her over and over and over again. And the more aggressive she gets, the more evil she looks, just to the normal layperson, just vague looking at thing. This chick is crazy. And now you have this plan. You put a lot of time, money, definitely a lot of money, a lot of effort.
This was the homeless.
This is the homeless movement. You think you're going to win on this one, and then you lose that one. And now you turn a smaller problem to a Mount Vesuvius problem.
So Shanti B was saying something like, because she was in the inner circle,
Yeah.
and that she was hearing things
Yes.
that made her very nervous, and she was just hoping it was just talk and it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, I think this is where. Good. Well, but the thing too is with her, she talks about the story where she got called into her house
To wax her legs.
to wax her legs.
Meaning Sheila's legs.
Sheila's legs, and she was. I mean, for her, it was like she was accepted into the inner circle.
Right, and she liked that, but then when it comes to the time where things are getting a little bit heavy, she's a kind person. She wasn't into all this violent stuff.
No, she was one of the original. Mind you, we got to remember that Ashanti B is one of the true Rajneeshis.
Yeah, she went to
She's one
India.
of the true Rajneeshis. You know, she wasn't a Johnny come lately. She was in Poon. She moved her whole family to India from Australia. So it's one of those things where you're into that meditation. You're into it for the religious aspect of it, and somehow slowly but surely, next thing you know, you're in the political side of it and the aggressive side of it. You know, becomes very surreal for her, and of course, we'll learn later on about what her actions were later on, but. It's just one of those things where, as far as what would you do if you were in Sheila's shoes, I think putting that stuff in the homeless beer, I mean, because I mean, what would you do if you had a huge, massive man foaming at the mouth, strangling you?
Yes.
In certain aspects of this episode, me personally, I'm on their side half the time. I'm on the Rajneeshi side half the time. It's just the other stuff, like, for example, if she wasn't so aggressive in the press, if she wasn't using the police force, peace force, however you want to label it, to harass the locals, if you weren't just so aggressive and so arrogant and so just blatantly disrespectful to the local, we're not in India, honey. You're in the United States. If you want... You have to show a sense of respect, kindness, understanding. But she blatantly disregards all of that. So she goes on the aggressive, and then she was there. She could have done it totally different. She just had to just be nice. If she was nice and not aggressive, I think we'd be talking about the state of Oregon being a Rajneesh state today. That's just my opinion, because you got to give and take. Here's give and take. We just talked about the Mormons. They give and take, and they got their. I mean, let's not lie.
They did get their
got a state. They got a state. Okay. Oregon could have been the Rajneesh state, like the Mormon state is Utah.
Right.
But they were respectful. They understood. They had to make some adjustments, but it just the what if factor at this point in time.
Yes, as far as this
story goes, this point in time, it could have been a whole different aspect, and for her to go to that extreme, because now she is literally not only on the ropes. See, we're just looking at the external. We're not talking about the meetings that she's having with the Bhagwan.
Exactly.
So the stress level, the panic button, who knows? I mean, now she's stuck with 4,000 homeless people, and you made your problem so much larger because your aggressive, disrespectful attacks aren't working. Now what do you do?
I think, yeah, so next episode we're going to find out some of these answers, or not answers, but what actually happened in solving some of this.
What about your opinion? I mean, I kind of like, what do you think about as far as what I'm saying? I mean as far as
Sheila's concerned and her actions?
Yeah,
I tend to agree with you. Also, Shanti B was mentioning that the Bhagwan was pushing her very hard.
Right.
And of course, she's totally devoted. She's, the whole 9 yards to him. She wants to make him happy. She wants to make this thing as successful. So she's going to do whatever it takes. And I know in my experience with things, that very minor things, but when you want something to be successful, you almost throw caution to the wind,
right.
Okay? And you go and do things, you probably know, I probably shouldn't do this, but I'm going to do it because I want this thing to succeed.
Right.
Whether it's, something in a classroom or something in the business world or something in your yard,
Right.
But this is, of course, a major community here. And so I can see where she is totally driven and she will do anything, sacrifice herself. Well, she had mentioned when we started this about the guillotine. She would take a guillotine. She welcomes it. She's
Right.
not afraid.
Yeah.
So when she's not afraid to take that guillotine, the United States government,
Guillotine.
yeah, she doesn't care. She's going to do it no matter what, and that's where I see all of this is going.
Right, and the thing too is that I think with and I'm just gonna say it, the Bhagwan hiding in his stinking mansion, you're the leader, supposedly this leader of the group, and you let somebody else take the bullets for. I think it's just cowardly, but that's just.
Yes, of course.
I mean, where you're a holy man or not, whatever. You're telling Sheila what to do, but you're too chicken, to at least show public support. I mean, at this point,
because he did not want to have that problem with the government him personally.
I know, which we'll
see later.
Get into later. But I just at this point right now, it's like you forget about the Bhagwan. To be honest with you,
yes,
you forget his existence, and I mean,
because
when you watch it, you forget like, oh my gosh, that's right, there is the Bhagwan.
Well, because the leadership, we're talking about the leadership circle around Sheila was becoming more devoted to Sheila than anything else.
And the fight
yes.
versus anything
yes.
else. So
okay.
All right.
Well,
At this point, we're gonna stop because we can go down our rabbit hole. We're not gonna do that as of yet. That's another episode for another time. So, thank you for listening. Looking forward to the next episode. Episode 4.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.